Now let's discuss the second classification of crystalline imperfection, which is line defects or the one-dimensional defects. Okay, so this type of defect is also called dislocation. Okay, dislocation meaning something has displaced or moved out of its place. Alright, so in terms of crystalline defects, it's lattice distortions which are centered around a line. Okay, you'll see it better in the next slides. So this is typically formed during solidification process. Okay, during the process of solidifying itself, this could have happened. Okay, and permanent deformation. Okay, you've heard about permanent deformation, I'm guessing, from uh, material deformation, yield strength. Probably you've learned about that in other subjects. Okay, so this causes the this line defects, or also vacancy condensation. That means that if a lot of point defects are happening, vacancy in the structure could cause this line defects. So point defects could lead to line defects. So there are three types actually of defects that we're going to look at here. The first one is edge dislocation. So, edge is on the side of things. Okay, let's say we have a material here. Edge meaning something that's happening on the corners. Not corner, but on the, you get what I mean. On the edge of the surface. On the side of the surface. There. Okay. And there's also called screw dislocation. I take it as you know what screw means. So the dislocation happens in a form of a screw. And then the third one actually is a combination of the two, which is edge and screw dislocation. So we have a mixed dislocation. Okay, so let's go through edge dislocation first. So this is when an extra plane, or rather extra half plane of atoms are added into the original structure. Okay, so this is just the writing convention. So if you see an inverted capital T here, that means it's called a positive edge dislocation. If it's T, the symbol is T, then it's a negative edge dislocation. You can see it in this diagram. What is the difference between the top layer of atoms and the bottom layer of atoms? Okay, if you count, the top layer has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns, and the bottom has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, when did it change? From this point onwards. Okay, so this is the half plane of atom that has been inserted into this structure. Okay, and from the symbol, you can see that this is called positive edge dislocation. Okay, it's being inserted from the top. So this is a positive edge dislocation. There's also something called the Burgers vector, okay, which shows the displacement of the atom or the slip. Okay, the Burgers vector, I just wanna expose you to it, is written in such a way. Okay, this is the dislocation line. Based on this is positive dislocation. This is the extra inserted plane. The Burgers vector indicate how the atoms around it are displaced. Okay, you can see it here, 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 and here. Okay, the next type of line defect, the second type, is the screw dislocation. So when you hear screw, you know that there's some kind of rotation involved. Okay, which is exactly the case here. This is the original structure, and then you can see there's a plane here. This is called the cutting plane. And what happens is this side, the white side here, okay, is turned one way. In this case, it's turned downwards. Okay, if you play Rubik's Cube, you can imagine this very easily. One side is turned downwards and the side behind the plane, okay, this side is turned upwards. So you are rotating the structure. Okay, if you have a Rubik's Cube somewhere, grab it and you can see this happening. So this is called screw dislocation. And the point of rotation, okay, we're not rotating the whole thing like we would a cube. We're not rotating this part and this part. It's just a part of it that is covered by the plane. So the plane is only halfway through the material. So that will be the point of screw dislocation. This part will not be touched. Okay, but from this point onwards, yes. And the result that you can see is this layer or this plane of atoms will be displaced. This part will be moving downwards, or will have moved downwards, and the opposite part will have moved upwards. So there's some displacement that can be seen here. The same will be in this side that we don't see. Okay, so this screw dislocation is created due to upward and downward shear stresses applied to regions of a perfect crystal separated by a cutting plane. So of course this cutting plane is imaginary. Okay, we don't see it, but this is where the shear stress is happening. Okay, it's pushing downwards on this side, upwards on the other side. So the lattice distortion, or the defect that is happening, it happens in the form of a spiral ramp. And the slip vector is parallel to the dislocation line. Okay, the slip vector, this is the slip, is parallel to the dislocation line. Okay, both in this diagram is all are vertical lines. Now the third one is simply a combination of the two, edge and screw. So most crystals have components of both edge and screw dislocation. So what you need to understand is that none of these defects are exclusive. You can't just say that, oh, this material only has point defects or only has screw dislocation. No, in most cases, because these defects happen naturally, it's impossible to control them. Okay, so most of the crystals will have a combination of both happening at the same place. Okay, so in this diagram you can see that an edge dislocation is happening here with the insertion of the extra half plane, and at this region there's a screw dislocation happening. Okay, in this region you can see the screw dislocation happening, where in this case it's sideways compared to what you saw in the previous slide. Okay, on the actual material, what can be seen? So dislocations appear as dark lines when observed in electron microscope. Okay, you can't even see it with the naked eye. It has to be under the microscope. So they appear as dark lines. So why are these regions dark? Because of the irregular atomic arrangement. So it all comes down to how the atoms are arranged in the end. Okay, yes, you can see that it moves this way and that way, but it is all built of atoms in the end. Okay, so these are just the irregularities in the atomic arrangement that is causing a different shape. Okay, you know that even when you paint a wall, or when you take a piece of colored pencil and you try to patch, color a patch on a piece of paper, maybe you just put that, you know that the difference in the pressure applied will cause a different shade. And it all comes down to the atoms that are present. So how do you get a darker shade? By applying more colors, etc. So that's how this is affecting the surface. Okay, so in the next video we're going to look at the 2D defects, or rather the plane imperfection, the planar imperfections, and also the last one, which is the volume imperfection.